All right, I have 11 a.m. Central Time, so let's go ahead and get started. First and foremost, welcome everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us for our monthly webinar series. My name is Matt Firestone. I am president of Firestone Consulting Group, and today I'm going to share with you our 7 steps to better goal setting. But first, a little bit about Firestone Consulting Group. We work with the leaders and owners in the construction industry to build businesses for the lifestyle they desire through leveraging their people and developing well-oiled systems to operate their business. Our proven methods are based on real-world experiences in running and growing contracting businesses. With years of hands-on experience, our team of advisors and consultants will work with you to define your goals, develop a plan to achieve them, guide you in implementing the plan, and most importantly, be right there with you to celebrate your successes. Our webinar this month is sponsored by TriBuild. TriBuild construction management software allows contractors the ability to standardize, collaborate, track, and store important project management operations and documents, such as submittals, RFIs, change orders, and time cards, all in one extremely convenient and easy to use cloud-based software. Reduce your costs, drastically increase productivity, and gain total control of your project management processes with TriBuild. TriBuild is part of the McCormick companies, and they have added TriBuild to their software offerings for contractors. And you can reach TriBuild at tribuildsystems.com, and they'd be happy to help you with any of your project management needs. So how many of you have said to yourself, well, I'm a self-starter, I don't need goals to be successful? Or maybe goal setting is for unorganized people, I can keep all my goals in my head. Or maybe some of you are on the complete opposite end of the spectrum and maybe say, goal setting works. I have been able to accomplish so much. Whatever part of the spectrum you fall in with any of those statements there, hopefully after today's webinar, you'll see how goal setting can work for you and maybe change your mindset if you were one of those first two that maybe you haven't set formal goals in the past, or more importantly, written those goals down, that you have those in your mind, but how do we really, look to be able to truly accomplish more and achieve more? So the outcomes for our webinar today is, first look at why we set goals. Secondly is look at common reasons why goal setting fails. Look at why goal setting works, and then do a little bit deeper dive into our 7 steps to better goal setting. One caveat that I want to mention about the information today is a lot of this is going to be more focused around personal goals, that there are a little bit different things that we would want to tweak in these various models or in our 7-step process if we were looking at maybe corporate goals and how we wanted to ensure that everybody's on that same page. But with that, why do we typically set goals? And if you'd like, you can add your comments in to the chat. And as always, if you have questions along the way, feel free to enter those into the Q&A part of Zoom as well. But when we look at the question, why do we set goals? Well, for some of us, it might be to achieve more. Maybe they're financial goals and it's to achieve financial freedom. Maybe we could even tie those to our business goals if we were the business owner, that's why we went into business for ourselves, is to achieve that financial freedom. Maybe it's as simple as learning something new. Maybe we have a goal to learn a foreign language or pick up an instrument that we've always wanted to learn to play, or just some other type of skill or something that we would like to do or we've always wanted to accomplish. Maybe from a business sense, or maybe along the lines of an employee, maybe it's to get a promotion. And what are those things that we need to do to make sure that we are positioning ourselves and that we are being seen by others within the organization to get that promotion? or maybe it's things related to health. Maybe it's, losing weight, getting more fit. Maybe it's just setting a goal of spending, more time in the gym. And I think, as we think about it, it is January. And a lot of times when we think of January, people think of New Year's resolutions. And maybe even some of you have had New Year's resolutions in the past or have one that you're currently working towards. And I think there's, some loose correlation between that New Year's resolution and goal setting. But maybe some of you or people that have set those New Year's resolutions and have failed. And hopefully we can see through the webinar today that maybe you can pick out a few reasons why those New Year's resolutions tend to fail versus some of the other goals that we set for ourselves in life. As we, look at the topic of goal setting or setting goals, you can see real quick here, just screenshots of the two Google searches that I did. One is using the keyword setting goals, and the other one is goal setting. But in either instance, we have, over 1 billion results returned. And in the case of setting goals, 3 billion plus results of information on the topic of setting goals. Well, with this much information out there, and of course, most of it's free when we're finding it on the internet, some of it's articles, some of it's videos, some of it's infographics, but there's so much information. Well, then why do we struggle with setting good goals and, more importantly, attaining or achieving those goals that we set for ourselves? Well, let's start with looking at why does goal setting tend to fail? Well, we've seen that there's a number of reasons that goals can fail, and I've put those into two primary categories or two types of failures in goal setting. The first one being more of a process failure, and the second one being a mindset failure. So when we look at process failures in goal setting, the first one is, not specific enough. And this is probably the number one reason we fail in achieving our goals. And this can be as, simple as tweaking how we state that goal that we are setting. Maybe from a business standpoint, we set a goal of increasing our revenue. That's not very specific. What does that, truly mean versus stating it in such a way of increasing our annual revenue by 20% over 2020? A little bit more specific. We know the exact amount that we want to increase that revenue by. We know what we're comparing that to. But it's a lot more specific than just increasing revenue. Maybe on a personal note, such as a goal of saving for retirement. We know that it's important to put money into our 401k with each of our paychecks and those type of things. But just saving for retirement isn't as specific as saying having a retirement savings of $3 million by my 65th birthday. Again, being very specific with what is it that we're trying to achieve or trying to accomplish when we set that goal. The second, what I would say, process failure is that we're not focused, that we don't have a clear path for success. Maybe we've defined what that goal is, and maybe we've even done a good job of being very specific, but we haven't set out a clear path or a roadmap of how we're going to achieve success. The third one is too much on our plate. Maybe we're trying to accomplish too many goals at one time. Maybe we have some personal ones, we have some professional ones, some family, relationship, business related, but we have too many goals at one time. We end up being, busy, we're doing things, but are we really productively moving closer to achieving our goal? We also find that as we get too many goals on our plate or we're trying to accomplish too many things, that our goals start competing with one another for our time, for our energy, and our motivation to get those accomplished. And then the last one, as far as a process failure goes, would be not being committed. And when we say not being committed is, we get busy in our day-to-day lives And really what it boils down to is we lose sight of the why that goal is important to us. That maybe it just wasn't quite important enough that we're willing to make some of those sacrifices that we need to do with how we allocate our time or allocate some of our other resources to achieving that goal. The second type of failures, or what we describe as mindset failures. And these would be more those internal things that we would need to change or overcome as ourselves. Things that make us unique to others. Where when we look at process, it's just maybe having a step-by-step way of doing things. But some of these mindset failures or that more internal drive, but we can see, fear of failure. Maybe it's self-doubt, some self-sabotage, or limiting beliefs of what we can accomplish. Maybe saying to ourselves that I've never been able to win at anything that I do. Along the lines of the process failures, but we talked a little bit about, the goal isn't important enough. We want the success, but we don't want the hard work that, again, maybe the sacrifice is greater than the reward that we're going to see at the end. Third one, too many excuses. And this is one that I've seen number of times, is that, really we all deal with outside factors. But the choice is ours to make if we want to be successful. I just look back at, all the crazy things that have happened in the last year with the COVID-19 pandemic. There's been some businesses that have thrived through the pandemic, and others have had to shut their doors. Now there are some with government limitations of, maybe restaurant and hospitality, but just looking at contracting businesses, as we've talked with and worked with contractors around the country, we've seen some, adding people and projects to their backlog, and others that are, very set in their ways, and it's easier to blame the pandemic for their challenges that they've had. Maybe it's with finding good people. Maybe it's with finding good customers and growing more things. That we can come up with hundreds of excuses of why we can't achieve our goals, but the choice is ours to make if we want to truly be successful. The next one is that we mistake bumps in the road for failure. I've seen this myself with some of the goals that I've set, and you start down that path, you have a roadmap for success, and something comes up, and there is a little bit of a bump in the road or a hurdle that we have to overcome. But really all this is the time for us to maybe take a step back, reevaluate, and make any of those necessary adjustments that we need to keep moving forward and moving closer and closer to that goal. The next one is letting others derail our success. And I think we've all heard, the old saying is it's a lot easier to try to bring people down than it is to work harder and work up to their level. Again, the goal needs to be important to you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be important to others. And this is one of those ones where, like we talked, we're primarily focused on personal goals and personal accomplishments. But this is one of those ones where when we start looking at business and operational goals, where sometimes we don't have everybody aligned with the importance or why we're trying to achieve that goal in the first place. And then the last one here of our mindset failures is doing it for the wrong reasons. And what we mean by doing it for the wrong reasons is that, we set a goal to maybe impress somebody else more so than we want to accomplish that goal. Maybe it's, wanting to go out and buy that fancy sports car or have that vacation home, some of those types of things to maybe seek prestige, maybe try to fit in with a group of society or something like that, we set these goals, we make these sacrifices trying to achieve that, but it really isn't something that truly aligns with our values and why we're doing what we're doing. Now, looking at what I would say maybe the more positive side of goal setting is why goal setting works. Well, we know that, goal setting helps us to create ownership and clarity in the outcome. Think of visualization of, only you can determine what success looks like for you. And then, the next step would be is developing that plan of how you're going to get there. That success picture is going to look different for everybody. Again, back to my example of maybe having that retirement goal. The number I chose there is an arbitrary number, but for one person, maybe $1 million in a retirement account is adequate for them, and they feel they've accomplished something. Where somebody else, they want to live a different lifestyle. And that goal is a $5 million nest egg when they retire. So again, it can have very similar outcomes in what it is that they do want to retire, but that lifestyle that they have or that they want to have is going to look very different from one person to the other. But that's where it's, gaining that clarity, taking ownership of that ourselves. The other thing that we know about why goal setting works is it creates a deadline. That goals need to be timed bound, that there is an end, and it helps us maybe overcome some of the procrastination that we might have. That if we set that goal, we set that deadline, maybe we do procrastinate and we have to do a lot of work at the very end of the timeline that we gave us to accomplish that goal. But the other side of that is it does show us that there is an end, that there is that light at the end of the tunnel that we're working towards, that just isn't a perpetual nose to the grindstone. We have to keep working. We have to keep taking action to get there, that we give ourselves some time boundaries and that we set up a plan to allow us to achieve and accomplish that within those time constraints. The other thing that we know is by having milestones that they start to create small wins. So as we come up with or develop our plan for achieving our goal, we would want to set individual milestones of maybe some key things or larger rocks that we have to accomplish along the way. And as we accomplish those milestones or complete those milestones, we get that satisfaction of having that small win, and it gives us some trajectory into that next challenge that we're going to face, continuing to move towards that end goal. Next one is accountability. And when we look at accountability, this can be both internal, accountability with having deadlines and those milestones, having an action plan of, carving out time in our schedule or on our calendar to actually get things done. But we also know that external accountability works well when it comes to goal setting. It provides, group motivation, provides support. Maybe as we're working through some of these things, there's challenges, and we have a network of people or a support group that can help us to solve some of those challenges or overcome those challenges and move forward. Look at group fitness classes at gyms. Great example of that group accountability where you start creating almost its own little community within the gym itself of people showing up, working together to become healthier, get more fit. Maybe for some it's losing weight, those type of things. But you have a group that's there for motivation, support, and accountability. The next one is what I'd like to describe as the shiny object syndrome. And maybe for some of you, it's thinking, ADD, the attention deficit disorder, that we're always moving to that next shiny object. That by setting clear goals, having a plan to, accomplish those goals, that it really helps us have that focus to get things done and accomplish our goal. And then the last thing is the brain chemistry that, as we succeed, maybe it's with these individual milestones and probably even more so when we ultimately accomplish our goal. But, your brain starts to release chemicals, and in this case, dopamine, to where you get that feeling of reward and satisfaction for the hard work, the sacrifices that you have made in achieving or accomplishing more. So when we look at setting goals, and maybe some of you are familiar with some of the various goal setting frameworks. Again, you could just do a quick Google search of goal setting frameworks. I think these are all very important, or an important part in the overall goal setting process. It creates some structure, gives us a bit of a checklist of how we could work through that goal setting process, but I don't think they're all encompassing. So just looking at a few of them here that maybe you've heard of, maybe you haven't, but the CLEAR goal setting framework. And this one is great for working in a large group where, the C is for collaborative, is everyone involved in that process. L is for limited. Are there times and financial boundary or time and financial boundaries associated with this? So again, that time bound component. The emotional, does the goal engage all of the team members? Is everybody willing to put forth the effort to achieve that goal? Is it appreciable? Is the goal important enough to be noticed by everyone? And how will they measure that success when it is achieved? And then the last one is R, the refinable. Can it be adjusted if necessary? I'm not going to go through each one of these. Let's jump to hard. And that's, maybe we use this when it's trying to accomplish something big, think of hard work. But is it heartfelt? Are we emotionally invested in that? Animated? Can we picture ourselves achieving this goal? What does that success look like? R would be required. What routines are required for success? So maybe tying it to habits that we have on a daily basis. Is it difficult? Are we challenging ourselves enough that when we do have success, we will feel that sense of reward, that sense of accomplishment, that we have, I guess the sacrifices, the dedication was worth that hard work. And then let's look at FAST. This works well, again, maybe in that group setting, think fitness, weight loss, those type of things. That it's, F is frequently discussed. Are we regularly reviewing our goal, tracking our progress, those types of things? Is it ambitious? Is our goal challenging enough to us? Is it specific? Is there a clear outcome of, what success is and how success will be measured? And then the last one is transparent. Is our progress visible to others? So again, fast goal setting may not work if we're saving for retirement. I guess we could share our retirement account statements with others, but that wouldn't be as visible as, something fitness related, or maybe even a new skill that we're trying to learn. But I guess the one thing when we look at any of these frameworks is, we see that it's looking at, trying to challenge ourselves to do something big. We've seen multiple instances where there's a time component to it. We're looking at, that emotional tie. What does it mean to us to accomplish that goal? That it's looking at routines, that process, but we could Google, goal setting frameworks and come up with a whole list of acronyms. And a lot of times the acronyms are great to help us remember what it is, but we still need to look at what each of those components are. The framework that I think we probably are all familiar with the most, this is the one that I like using as I try to structure any of the goals that I'm setting for myself, is SMART goals. And again, you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. This is something that's been around since the early 80s. Actually, a gentleman in Spokane, Washington, director of corporate planning for Washington Water Power Company, wrote a paper titled, "There's a Smart Way to Write Management's Goals and Objectives." It's been modified, tweaked, changed over time, but it still goes back to the same principles and ideas that he had in that paper in 1981. but that when we look at, the specific, that it's, have a reason of why, or not so much a reason, but it's being very clear on what it is we're trying to accomplish. It can't be arbitrary, like we said, it's not just increasing revenue, it's setting, that goal of increasing revenue by a certain amount compared to, X. So we know that we've achieved that. When we look at measurable, not only what is that measurement at the end, but how are we going to measure that incremental success that we have along the way? Of course, we want to know what that is at the very end, but how are we going to know that we're on the right track? It's kind of like looking at our accounting systems. We don't just wait till the end of a project or the end of the year to see if we've made a profit on that project or if we've made a profit as a company. We need to look at that, quarterly, monthly. What are those things that we're tracking over time to make sure that we are on track for success? Looking at, is it attainable? One of the most important things when we're setting any goal is making sure that the goal that we have for ourselves is something that's in our control. When we say attainable, we're not necessarily implying that our goal should be that low-hanging fruit, something that's going to be very easy to accomplish. We want to make sure that we are challenging ourselves, that there's going to be some sacrifice along the way as we work towards success. But it needs to be something that we definitely have in our control. If you're a project manager for a company, it's going to be real hard for you to determine and dictate what the total bottom line is for that company. Or if you're not, tied to safety, if you're an estimator, you're not going to have a lot of impact on the field safety aspects of the business. So make sure that, whatever those goals are that you set, that it's in your control, that you can actually achieve those. Looking at R, the relevant part of it. And really what we're looking at here is to answer the why question. Why is this goal important to you? And are you willing to make the necessary sacrifices to achieve success? Again, that, maybe time, maybe, financial resources, but whatever that is, why is it that you want to accomplish this? And is there enough there? Is there enough teeth or enough bite in that it is worth those sacrifices that you're going to have to make? Again, thinking back to, the attainable, we're not looking for that low-hanging fruit where it's just a quick to-do list that we can work through and move on to the next thing. We want this to really move that needle and make us better, accomplish something grand. And then the last one, T, or time bound. What is your deadline? Remember, this isn't necessarily that it's carved in stone, but we do need to give ourselves a deadline, or it becomes too easy for us to keep pushing it to the back burner and really never getting anything accomplished. So when we look at our 7 steps to better goal setting, we can see that the first one here is gather your ideas. And then we talk about painting a picture, writing it down, create your plan, make it happen, evaluate your progress, and then really an important step is celebrating success. So what is it that we mean by gathering our ideas? Well, this is, determining what is that goal that we're wanting to accomplish. It's looking, as you can see in the image there, we're standing on one cliff. We know that we want to summit the peak on the other mountain there, but what is that goal that we want to accomplish? Well, some of the questions that we should ask ourselves as we're going through this information gathering process is, we don't want to jump into that SMART form and start filling out the information, but we need to, think a little bit deeper and why is this goal important to me? Again, that relevance component. What are some of the challenges or obstacles that you'll face along the way? Again, we know that there's going to be some of those unforeseen ones, but there might be some that we can predict ahead of time. Maybe that ties to the milestones. Maybe it helps us identify some of those outside resources of where we need to go for help, where we need to go for support. Maybe it's different, pieces of tools or equipment or technology that we need to invest in to help us achieve that goal. And then again, what are the sacrifices that you will have to make? And more importantly, are you willing to make those sacrifices as you work to achieve your goal? The second step is to paint a picture. Again, we talked about, that success picture for you might look completely different than that success picture for your business partner, for your spouse. Again, back to my example of saving for retirement, each of us has a little bit different idea, a different picture of what successful retirement looks like to each and every one of us. For some of us, when we retire, we want to completely walk away from the corporate world, maybe get a chair on a beach somewhere and just relax. For others, that retirement, maybe it's getting away from that day-to-day grind of the business. Maybe it's not putting in 70 or 80 hours anymore, but we still want to be connected to that corporate world somehow. Maybe it's being an advisor to the company we worked for, or to others. Maybe it's giving back and helping with a training program related to the construction industry, or doing some guest speaking at a university or something like that. Again, that picture of success or that goal is going to look different for each one of us. When we look at, what success looks like for each of us, is it's, how would you describe achieving, your goal to somebody else? Paint that clear picture, illustrate that. Maybe some of us are a little bit more analytical and we want to have it very linear and maybe a spreadsheet, some facts and figures. But whatever that is, however you, would go about describing that to somebody else, that's really what we want to do. It may be something that's personal to us, the goal, that we don't share that with others, but think of it and describing it in such a way that you could sit down and describe it to somebody that's maybe outside of your industry, outside of your, kind of social ecosphere, that maybe doesn't understand all the nuances of business or some of the other things that you might be setting goals for. When we think about this visualization, this painting, this picture, one of the places we go is, what is it that you're going to be doing when you succeed? Think of yourself maybe standing up on that hilltop, looking down at yourself. What is it you're going to be doing? Maybe it's thinking about how you'll feel when you've succeeded, not just that sense of accomplishment, but, is it more relaxed? Is it, maybe it's happy because there's something that there's tension in a relationship and there'll be some satisfaction there. But, what is it that you'll feel? What is it you'll be doing? Sometimes it's closing your eyes and just walking through telling this story to somebody else. Step number 3 is write it down. And I think this is, again, back to one of the very first slides I had of a lot of people in their mind literally have their goals in their mind. And what we know is that it becomes real easy for that to get kind of fuzzy, get kind of some gray areas there where we know where we want to go. Maybe we have a plan, but we really don't have that focus. We don't have that drive. Makes it a little too easy to change up what it is that we're trying to accomplish. A Michigan State University found that individuals who wrote down their goals and had an action plan to achieve them achieved their goals 76% of the time, versus those who didn't write them down only achieved their goals 43% of the time. So looking at that statistically, you're 176% more likely to succeed if you have that goal written down. And when we say writing the goal down, well, this is where we can introduce those goal setting frameworks, that they become a great checklist to help us get all that important information. If we look back to the SMART framework, we can see that it helps us to determine, a specific goal, be very clear on what that is, that it's measurable, how are we going to measure success? How are we going to measure that incremental success? Is it attainable? Is it relevant to us? Are we willing to put forth, the effort, make those sacrifices, have that fortitude to get through and accomplish that goal? And then is it time bound? Do we have that deadline by when we need to accomplish that goal? Like I said, the SMART framework is the one that I tend to use myself. But I've seen that some of those other ones for different situations, different scenarios might be better suited. I mentioned that using this framework, it becomes that checklist of the key components of your goal to help you through that thought process of getting that clarity, getting that information on paper, so that you do know, what is my goal? How am I going to accomplish that? And how will you know when it is that you've succeeded? Again, the more specific and exact, the better. The next step is to create your plan. And this is when we start looking at, what is that strategy? What are some of those tactics behind putting that goal into action? And it's saying, okay, back to my example of the individual standing on a cliff looking to the other mountain peak. Okay, we know where we want to go. How are we going to get there? Or how are we going to accomplish that goal? What are those steps that we need to take? So this is where we start talking about charting our course, and it's maybe identifying those milestones along the way. What are some of those big components or the big rocks that we can get checked off of our list as we accomplish those? Maybe it's something where we set a 90-day goal for ourselves, and those milestones become, what is it that we're going to accomplish each week? Maybe it's every other week or each month that we're going to accomplish along the way, that we can track our success, that we can measure, are we getting closer to that goal? Again, the milestones themselves aren't the individual tactics or to-dos, but they're a little bit more, I would say, kind of like a chapter in a book. If we were writing a book of how we're going to accomplish the goal, those milestones would be the chapters in our book to help us get to the end. And then the next part is what are those individual steps that we need to do or to take action upon to reach our goal? Think about this as breaking our goal into smaller pieces, maybe even thinking of it as mini goals. That we go back to looking at the slide of why goal setting works, and it's some of that with that brain chemistry of getting that boost of dopamine to give us that momentum, work through some of those challenges that we're going to have, and get towards that next milestone, give us a little bit more momentum and keep going, because whatever the goal is that we set, again, we're not looking at that low-hanging fruit. We're looking at, what is something that's challenging us? What is something that's making us better? Well, there are going to be bumps, there are going to be hurdles, there are going to be challenges along the way. So having these milestones, having these activities that we're going to do, maybe on a daily basis, a weekly basis, maybe there's some habits that we need to create around this, but it's looking at how is it that we're going to accomplish that goal. The next step is make it happen. And this is, the whole stop planning, start doing. It's, maybe some people describe it as analysis paralysis, but we need to get into that action-oriented mindset of, okay, we have it planned, we've put it into our SMART goal framework, we've developed that roadmap for success, we've identified those milestones, we have that plan. Now what is it that we're going to do today, tomorrow, next week, next month? That this is where we're really getting it into our daily schedule. Maybe it's putting things on our calendar and making sure that we are, creating action or taking action, moving towards that goal. The next step is to evaluate our progress. The image on the left-hand side, we had our course charted, where we were going to go. Looked like maybe it was going to be pretty easy. I don't know how easy that would be if the hiker there is on their hands and feet going up that incline, but definitely a lot different than facing a challenge when all of a sudden we're hanging from the cliff and we're doing a little bit more rock climbing than we are hiking up a path. But evaluate, adjust, and move forward. That we do know that bumps, hurdles, and unexpected challenges do happen, but these aren't signs of failure. That one, it should be a reinforcement that we did pick the right goal, that it is challenging, that we are going to accomplish something by moving down this path. But we just need to make sure that we are keeping that end goal in mind, and that we might need to modify our path from time to time. So again, thinking back at the very beginning there, we were standing on one cliff looking over to the summit of another peak. And we know what that end goal is, but there could be a lot of different things that we have to do along the way. Maybe some of it's walking up a hill, some of it's crossing a stream. Whatever that is, we may need to modify, make those adjustments to our path as we move forward. And then step number 7, and again, I think this is the one that we probably forget about the most, is to celebrate our success. We did it. It's time to enjoy, reflect, and celebrate what we were able to accomplish. So many of us, especially those that are, achievers, self-starters, as soon as we reach one goal, we move right into that next goal, and we're working on the next thing. Not quite as bad as the shiny object syndrome, but we just don't take time to enjoy what it is that we just made those sacrifices for, that we committed that time, committed those resources to achieve success. Think about it. Without celebration, we just get lost in the action, that it just becomes our normal routine, our to-dos, that we don't get that satisfaction of, putting forth that effort to accomplish that. Again, thinking back to that, our brain's reward center, that dopamine boost, that, if we don't take and enjoy that, we'll get that hit of dopamine as we achieve and accomplish things, but we'll miss some of those signals and not really be able to enjoy those. And then it just kind of becomes routine or mundane, and that just becomes part of life. So just a real quick recap on our 7 steps to better goal setting. The first one is gather our ideas. It's, what is the goal? Why is it important to us? Maybe looking at some of those challenges, those hurdles that we might face. The second part there is paint a picture. Visualize, what does it look like when we have succeeded with that goal? The third one, write it down. Again, keeping it in our mind, we may have a real good idea of where it is that we want to go, but it allows for that picture to become a little bit blurred, get a little bit fuzzy, that when we have it written down, it becomes a little bit more permanent. Now, again, we're not carving this into stone, that we know that there has to be some flexibility, that things come up, but when it is written down, it becomes a lot more permanent than it is just being an idea. The next part is create your plan, and this is taking the information from maybe the SMART framework. It's that written down goal that we have, and what are the steps, the milestones that we're going to have to work through, reach to get to our end goal. What are those things along that path that we're going to have to do? Number 5 is make it happen. It's putting that roadmap, that plan into action and actually getting things done. We can't keep analyzing. We can't keep planning. That at some point we need to put the pencil down and we need to say, okay, now it's time to make this happen. Number 6 is evaluate our progress. Like we said, there's certain things that we can plan for, but there's going to be those unforeseen challenges that we are faced with. Maybe it is something that, we have a goal that we're trying to accomplish, something work related, but we have a sick family member that we have to tend to. So maybe for a week or two, we have to refocus our energies, our efforts, but that shouldn't completely derail our overall goal. We just need to reevaluate, reassess, readjust our plan, get back on track when we can, and continue to work towards that goal. And then the last one, like we said, very important, but probably one that's skipped over the most, is celebrate those successes when we do have them. Um, and again, with goal setting, doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be 100% accurate. Go back to my example of saving for retirement. If my goal is to save, $3 million and I get to 2.9 million, yeah, I didn't achieve the exact goal that I set out for, but there were sacrifices along the way. I was able to accomplish something great. I should still feel happy with what I did. The same thing goes is what happens if all of a sudden we saved a $3.5 million versus the 3 million? Are we going to be upset because we didn't hit exactly the goal that we had? But whatever that goal is that we set, whatever accomplishments that we make along the way, we should, stop, celebrate those successes, and really use that as our motivation to, set that next goal, continue to improve, and work for something else. The last thought I want to leave you with here is a goal without a plan is just a wish. And maybe some of you have heard this before, but to me, this kind of encapsulates everything that we've talked about with, getting it written down, using a framework as a checklist, being very specific, visualizing what success looks like, that, we can all wish for something positive in the future, but if we don't have a goal, we don't have a plan, we really don't know if we've truly accomplished that. And more importantly, we don't know how we're going to accomplish that. So with that, I'm going to open it up to any questions that anybody has. Feel free to enter those into the chat. You can use the question and answer section of Zoom to ask those questions, but feel free to put those in there. As with all of our webinars, these are recorded and they will be uploaded to our YouTube channel within the next couple of days. You can watch this recording and any of our other recordings of our previous monthly webinars. But as I'm waiting for some questions to come in, and maybe there won't be, I do want to thank our sponsor, TriBuild, again, for their support of our webinar. If you would like to reach us, you can do so by phone at 402-817-1420 or on the web at firestonecg.com. Again, if you would like more information on TriBuild, you can visit them on the web at tribuildsys.com. And with that, again, thank you everyone for taking time out of your Wednesday, I guess, morning for some, afternoon for others. Hopefully you enjoyed our webinar today, and we look forward to seeing you at future webinars.